When one considers the social condition of black women, and according to recent statistics, 70% are single. It is important to note that within this troubling number, they are not speaking of women who have dropped out of high school. They're not talking about black women who are on welfare. They're not talking about black women who have had multiple children with different men. When this number is discussed, this 70% of black women who are currently single, they're speaking of professional black women. Women who have gone out and have attained everything that society said she would need to make her an eligible candidate for committed long-term relationships and ultimately marriage. Consider these facts. She has a college degree. She owns her own home. She has her own automobile. She makes her own money. But in light of these social trappings, 70% of professional black women find themselves single or in dead-end relationships with down-low homosexuals, petty drug dealers, or married pastors. And the question bears, why? Now, when I offer my critique as to why this is, many people have labeled me a misogynist. Have heard rumblings of he prefers white women, or he hates black people. This is understood. But yet the facts cannot be denied, nor can they be refuted. That your average black female in 2012, be she professional or not, is emotionally unstable, spiritually barren, politically uncouth. And this is most troubling when you view black women and how, because of their social behavior, they have breathed fresh life into age-old stereotypes, not only concerning the black female sexuality, but her personality and how she deals in interpersonal relationships. Because of her actions, she has rendered these stereotypes facts. No one can refute this. 70% of these sisters being single is most troubling. And it becomes even more troubling when one considers that you have a black female sitting in the White House who have remained deathly silent concerning the social plight of black women in this nation. Michelle Obama has raised her voice and said nothing concerning the ongoing downward spiral of professional black women and black women in general. She has said nothing about the Nicki Minaj and the other entertainers who promote and peddle cultural filth. She raises her voice and says nothing about the women who are half-dressed and gallivant on the world stage, breathing fresh life into age-old stereotypes about black females and their sexuality. This becomes compounded when you consider that Michelle Obama is raising 2 black girls. She remains silent on the conditions of black women. And one would have to ask, why? And upon further review, it became clear to me as to why Michelle Obama refuses to open her mouth and say one word in protest concerning the ongoing degradation of black females in this nation. When you consider that it would be quite hypocritical for Miss Obama to raise her voice in opposition to the Nicki Minaj's and the other women in the entertainment industry who basically conduct themselves like sleazy prostitutes. It would be hard for her to offer up a sound, critical analysis of their behavior when her husband is flying around on Air Force One with Jay-Z, an ex-dope dealer who has come to national prominence rapping about selling dope to black people, destroying black lives and black families. Yet this is who Mr. Obama gallivants around with and flies on Air Force One and plays basketball on the South Lawn with and allows to hold fundraisers for him. And even though this is quite dysfunctional, the American Negro, when you approach the American Negro and you ask them, why is it that you don't see anything wrong with Michelle Obama remaining silent about the downward condition of black women, it is black women themselves who will defend Miss Obama. It is black women who will say, well, she wasn't elected and it's not her place. And this is what they will say. Likewise, when you ask the American Negro about Mr. Obama and how he has remained utterly silent about how black men conduct themselves in public like social buffoons, dressing like circus clowns, he remains silent on these issues. And again, it is the Negro who gives him a pass. Yet and still, when Mr. Bush, a white man, did not act fast enough according to the Negroes during Hurricane Katrina, he was immediately labeled as one who didn't care about black people. In that same election year, when asked then Vice President Dick Cheney about AIDS epidemic in black females, and he responded, I didn't know there was an epidemic, immediately Mr. Cheney was labeled as one who didn't care about the plight of black women in America. But they remained silent when you have Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, who will open their voice and say nothing concerning the degradation of not only black women and black men, and how they themselves are the ones who are breathing fresh life into stereotypes. And the reason why they give them a pass is because they're black. And that in and of itself demonstrates just how dysfunctional this American Negro has become. He is no different than his ancestors. Well, let me correct that. Actually, he's worse than his ancestors, because at least his ancestors knew that they were slaves. This modern day Negro, because he has allowed himself to be duped and he has allowed himself to sip from the crack cup of political propaganda being served by his liberal slave masters of the DNC, he somehow believes that he is no longer a slave. But I would offer the analysis that he is a slave nonetheless. He is in worse condition than his ancestors because he actually thinks he's mentally free, when in all actuality he is every bit the buck-dancing, bow-jangling slave who still votes for a party, a political party that sought to maintain slavery and to keep his black ass in chains. So when you consider the fact that 70% of black women are single, 70% of professional black women are single, even though you have a black female sitting in the White House and she remains silent about the conditions of her fellow sisters, yet it is black women themselves who gives Miss Obama a pass, only goes to prove what I've been saying in all of these videos, and that is that the American Negro is regressing. He is not progressing. In 2012,